discuss the anterior approach and the best treatment options for your hip pain.
Dragon Hollow has been a Missoula favorite for nearly 20 years, and this May, they are making it even better. New play equipment and flooring will invite and fully accommodate children of all abilities. Won't you help save the Dragon? Over 2,300 volunteers are needed May 15th through the 19th, as Dragon Hollow becomes an even more welcoming space for everyone in our community. Your donations are also needed to help save the Dragon. For more info on volunteering or donating, please visit SaveTheDragonMT.com.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tootell and Coulter Nuanez.
Hello, Missoula. Gambling is legal on sports in the state of Montana. Brian Leaf is back in the state of Montana. And none of Montana's NBA teams are in the playoffs at this time. It is Tootell and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting to you live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. You can find us on the World Wide Web, 1029ESPN.com. There you can listen to the stream. The stream is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including this show for 10 of those hours each week. The stream is there thanks to Opportunity Bank. Your local bank, your opportunity. If you would like to call, we would be happy to have you. 329-1899. 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Let's take a look at what we got in the show. New legislation signed into law by Governor Steve Bullock today that has legalized state-sanctioned sports gambling in the state of Montana. Montana is now the 8th state to legalize sports betting. It is the first to do so in 2019, and we will discuss that and what that means. I think the implications in terms of what is all of a sudden going to be here are actually a lot less than what comes into your mind. I mean, I think people think that now a Montana version of the Bellagio where you're going to walk up and start betting on sports is going to be. That's not what is going to happen, but we will get into that because it is still an interesting and an impactful development, certainly in the state and from a sports perspective, particularly. We will get into the Little Sullivan Award finalists, the Little Sullivan Award for the top amateur athletes, male and female, in the state of Montana, regardless of sport, and so we'll go through that a little bit. Ryan Leaf returning to Montana to Great Falls for the first time since having been arrested in Great Falls, going back quite a while now. I mean, it's been close to a decade, maybe at least, something like that for Ryan Leaf, maybe a little less, but quite a few years. But coming a homecoming of sorts for Ryan Leaf, so we'll get into that. Next hour, we got to talk about the NBA. Joel Embiid, 33 points and absolutely dominant last night. Gasol, no answers for the process in the game. And so Philadelphia takes a 2-1 lead over Toronto after having fallen down 1-0 in that series. They've won each of the last two. And our ongoing conversation, debate, perspectives about what the Philadelphia 76ers need to do seems to, I won't say it changes with each game, but we have more information to work off of with each game that you see, especially playoff games. You know, this is one that you got to be great. Also, a couple of games tonight, including Milwaukee-Boston. So we will get into some of that stuff. And Danny Sprinkle had a news conference over there in Bozeman to introduce Coach Russell, the new assistant coach that is there, and get into some Montana State basketball stuff. So we will talk about that a little bit. There you go. Show Outlook brought to you by Lithia Ford of Missoula. As always, on a Friday afternoon, we do our Florence Coffee Company coffee break. It's the weekend, people. It's my last day here for a couple of weeks. I'm going to get in the van. I'm going to drive. I got to get myself fueled up, get myself a cappuccino going here. And Coulter, what are you getting? Iced coffee? Is that what you're getting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, iced coffee. Now it makes sense, man. The sunshine's going, the whole deal. Hey, you got excuses, okay? It's the weekend. You can stay up late. You can sleep in. Get yourself a Florence Coffee Company coffee right now. Make your weekend started off right with Florence Coffee Company. Before we get into, a couple of things. First of all, Tommy, you're leaving us here in like 15 minutes or something like that. Is that what's going on?
Yep, I keep telling you, you keep all this stuff up, I'm going to leave the show, I'm leaving the show.
What am I doing? What am I keeping up? I haven't even done anything. I've just gotten started here.
What's your point? I'm not gonna answer your questions. You can answer my questions.
I'm just going to say that I'm going to miss you. You know what I mean? You're leaving, and then I'm not going to see you, and then that's going to be that for a while. You know, I'm a little teary-eyed about this.
Yeah, I will miss you too, Ryan. But I am looking forward to moving my operations from this back production studio into that very chair where you are now, live on the YouTube, and I will be driving the show with Coulter from here on out.
That sounds like a fabulous idea. Now, I got to say, just quickly, because we did lie we didn't lie. But the coffees that we got from the Florence Coffee Company just got delivered. JT, great work.
Thanks, JT.
Great work, okay?
JT looked great on camera, man. Get that guy on the show.
He can't hear you.
It's a low bar.
Now, wait a minute. Why are you guys getting coffee hand-delivered to you?
Where's your coffee?
Well, in my cup here.
Did he bring it to you?
No, I have my own coffee from Flowco.
Oh, Tommy might have missed order.
Missed out on the order. I'm sorry, man.
Was there a group effort to get coffee? I bought my own Flowco coffee today.
You know what it was? It was only those employees that were staying to the end of the day that were gotten coffee today. In any case, Tommy, have a wonderful weekend. Couple of weeks.
Travel safe, man.
Appreciate
Looking
it.
forward to some updates and some photos and all that from the big trip.
I'll tell this to the people, okay, out there, because now this is the sort of thing. You know, these radio guys who do like the public weight loss thing. It's nothing but accountability. Like, that's why they do it, not because they want to or whatever. It's because they're like, well, if I tell everybody in America that I'm going to go out and lose 10 pounds, well, then by God, I better go do it. You know what I mean?
Sounds like my future.
Here's the thing.
I'm not kidding.
You're on your way.
We slanged a sponsorship earlier today. Stay tuned. Next week it's coming.
Oh, man.
Somehow I'm going to be riding a bike and dying.
But speaking of updates, so we got the Tootell Nuanez YouTube channel, but Tommy was also good enough to assist me in creating the Ryan Tootell YouTube channel. And my goal here is to use this YouTube channel to upload videos if I'm able to figure it out, which I don't know if I'll be able to, but I'm going to do my best, figure it out, to of videos from the trip. So if I see things that are cool or that I think are interesting, or it's not going to be, I don't anticipate this being like the new Travel Channel show or something like that. This is going to be mostly like friends and family type of stuff. But if you want to check in, see what the Philippines look like, I'll try and put some stuff up as I'm able to. I don't know what the Wi-Fi situation is over there. I don't even know my own capabilities of actually uploading a video to YouTube. I've never done it, and I don't like my chances. But I'll give it a best shot. So Tommy, for you anyway, you can I don't know, what do you do? Follow? Do you subscribe, or you can just look up Ryan Tootell on the thing? Will it come up? I don't even know how to do it.
He's out.
Do you think he's already left? Do you think he said 15 minutes and then it was 3 minutes gone? Let me look. Hold on. Let me look at the window.
We have just been on fire leading this radio show lately. No wonder we're always 8 minutes behind, because we don't start the show for 8 minutes.
I think he left. I think he actually just walked out.
He's gone. He's fed up.
Okay.
Well, welcome to the first domino. Ryan will be on a plane tomorrow.
Yep.
And by May 15th, this show might just be Nuanez and Nuanez.
Hey, Brooks is in here today. Okay, let's talk about this. Coulter, big development in the state of Montana. Montana becomes the 8th state and the first this year to legalize sports gambling. Steve Bullock, the governor, signing a version actually not even a version, signing one of two bills into law, allowing a state-sponsored, a state-overseen sports gambling aspect that is within the Montana lottery. And also, but in a subsequent bill or in a second bill, vetoing a bill that had that made provisions for private business, private industry to run sports gambling or sports books. And so this is not a situation where either extant casinos that are privately held or new casinos or whatever in general, or just your privately owned watering hole are going to all of a sudden you're going to be able to go up and put your money down on the counter and bet the games there like that. But what it does do is it allows sports gambling, first of all, within the state to be legal if you're betting here. I know a lot of people bet online from the state of Montana. I don't know exactly what the legality of it is, but the point is that money is certainly not placed in the state of Montana, and what the how the computers need to connect to make it legal or not, I don't know. I don't know any of that. I don't do it, so I don't know about it. But what this does do is it allows, first of all, there are going to be certain physical places where you can go and you can place actual bets into kiosk machines and potentially a mobile app as well. But again, all of this through the state.
And I think this is, to me, like you said, you could already sports gamble in Montana.
Right.
There's some questions to the legality of it, but we know people that do it and that are moderately successful with it, and that don't get any trouble with it. It seems to be legitimate. I mean, we know guys that have placed bets and collected bets, and it's been fine, and it's all good. To me, the reason I think this is a good thing for the state of Montana is that in Montana, with no sales tax, and the way the tax structure works in Montana, we pay some of the highest property taxes in the country, percentage-wise, while having some of the lowest wages, but also some of the lowest cost of living. And it's sort of this irony where there is a low cost of living in Montana, but then places like Bozeman and Missoula have these outrageous sales taxes, which actually make it so, or not sales tax, property taxes, yeah, which actually makes it expensive to live here. And then you factor in that the cost of living is also associated with low wages, but the low wages are okay in Montana because of the cost of living, then the property taxes that are so outrageous, they just seem so much more detrimental to the individual taxpayers. And I've thought a lot about the way that Montana could increase its revenue, maybe a tourism tax or a sales tax, because there is so much tourism in Montana. And so to me, the fact that this is being legalized is just good for the economy of the state. They're estimating $3.7 million,
right,
year one. This is good. It's good money. I guess the point is, if this is legal on the federal level, which it is because the Supreme Court made it legal, and you can do it in Montana, then you might as well have the money then be filtered through the state of Montana. Well, now having the state as the regulator, that's quite, I'm not so sure what I think of that. I do get that they're trying to enter the frontier, so to speak, with high regulations initially, and so that's why the privatized versions of these bills were shut down. The state of Nevada, I lived in the state of Nevada for a while when I was a little kid, and my parents lived in the state of Nevada for a long time when they were first married, and then up through my early childhood. And there's a lot of benefits to living in the state of Nevada. There's no income tax. There's the infrastructure in the state is well funded. Positions like teachers make a lot more money. And a lot of that stems from Las Vegas and Reno and the gambling industry. So I do think that even though gambling itself has been tagged with a lot of maybe questionable or seedy characters throughout history, and there is an element of danger both from the personal vice that it can become and even addiction that it can become, but also just the tie to organized crime back in the day in Nevada. But now, I don't know. It's interesting that the state regulation of this all, because, Yeah, I do think on one hand it's necessary, but on the other hand, I'm not so sure what I think of just the big government element of it. So no need to get political there, but I do think this is by and large a good thing for the state of Montana. I think it's good for the citizens of the state of Montana. I think it will inject extra revenue into the state of Montana, and I think it's by and large something that people will be very excited about.
You know, my stance by and large, I am not for gambling. And let me say that differently. I don't have a problem with gambling as such. But I have seen, and I'm certainly not I'm not a proponent of like illegalizing gambling or something along those lines. But you know, human beings are creatures of habit, and when the habits are good, that's great, and when the habits are bad, it's really bad. And again, everybody's responsible for themselves, and that's fine. But also, we at times, both individually but also societally, have to be protected from ourselves. You know, where, you know, it's not just there's plenty of things that are illegal that are harmful to us. That you know, if you wanted to go extreme on it, you could say, well, this is an infringement of my personal right. I should be able to do X, Y, and Z drug and X, Y, and Z.
Well, is there any law that actually prevents anybody from doing anything that's detrimental to our own personal self?
No, you're not. I understand what you're saying, but I'm not talking about
everybody that does drugs. They're not going to not do drugs if drugs are illegal.
I understand that. But if they're available or not,
more readily available than
that makes a difference. That makes
entry
a difference.
Point.
Absolutely.
Perhaps.
Not perhaps. Certainly. The thing, though, about this, and this is why I actually do like this bill, is because I don't think that this increases by a significant amount either the availability or the number of people who are going to participate in this. And by the way, while I don't bet sports, I have bet sports, and it's fun. It's a grand time to sit out there and think that you know more than everybody else, and you can sit there and you know you got this thing figured out, and throw $20 down, $50, whatever, and see what happens, you know, and maybe make a quick buck, turn around or whatever, and then, you know, lose it and so forth. I get that part of it, and like if there was an actual sports book, a Vegas-style sports book in Missoula, I'd be in there. I absolutely would be in there. It would be fun to do. I think that I have the capacity to not have that turn into something that becomes detrimental to myself, my family, et cetera, and so forth.
Totally.
But also, I know for sure there are people who, if that was open on their street corner, see you later. And again, that's on them, but also it's available to them. The fact that this isn't available in that way, I think, is a good thing. And the fact that like you said, it filters an estimated 3.7 million new dollars, and largely these are dollars that are already being gambled. That's the thing. It's not like all of a sudden a whole bunch of new people show up and start throwing new money down, and it just happens to be coming to the state of Montana. Sure, there's probably going to be some new people, you know, in there, and sports gambling is growing every year, both in terms of the dollar amount and the people participating in it. So that's fine. But this money, the reason there's even an estimate at all is because they are assuming that the people who are in the state of Montana who are gambling as it is on this stuff are going to, you know, be using the state monitored and sponsored and made available sort of apps and places for it. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good thing. And, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know where I stand in terms of the laws and government regulations policing people's individual behaviors, because, yeah, I mean, obviously drugs is the number one example that you could use, but alcohol's legal, and it's used and abused in mass in America.
No doubt.
So I think it does come down to personal accountability, but. You know, the thing that I'm going to think that I'm going to find interesting. Well, first of all, I think that one thing that this adds to the sporting culture, to what we do for a living, is the fact that you watch sports with me all the time.
Yep.
I rarely have a rooting interest in anything that we watch, just because I'm just not that much of a fan, passionately wanting somebody to win. I root for stories. I root for players. I root for, you know, really good action in specific NBA playoff series, for example. I might root for a specific team that night because I want the series to keep going, or I would love to see the position that a team is put in. Like the other night, I was hoping Houston would steal Game 2 against Golden State, just to put some pressure on Golden State. It's not that I like Houston at all. I was just rooting for that story. But when you bet on games, it changes the way that you consume. One of the most surprising and coolest experiences I've had was when Tommy and I were in Las Vegas, and it was the national championship game, Virginia versus Texas Tech. And we watched the game from the sports book at Caesar's Palace, and they had the game on a 300-inch TV with the surround sound going. But, I mean, there was quite literally thousands of people in all the seats, but also standing behind. I mean, it was a huge spectator event.
Yeah.
And I think when you have high-stakes national-level games like that, people that might not know a single thing about Virginia or Texas Tech learn a ton about those teams beforehand, so they know how to place their bets. So all of a sudden now they're more engaged fans, even if they had no clue who the head coach of Texas Tech was before this game. And secondly, then, as it comes down the stretch of a game like that, you know exactly who everybody bet on.
Right.
Because that's who everybody's rooting for.
Yeah.
And I again, like in that game, I have zero tie to Texas Tech or Virginia. I could care less.
Right.
And there was no particularly compelling storyline in that game besides the one that did play out, which was Virginia losing as a 1 seed to a 16 and then coming back and win the national championship. But regardless, I bet money on Texas Tech. And so then I found myself rooting passionately for Texas Tech down the stretch. I think that it does just change the sports consumption experience.
Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. I've had that exact same experience. You know what from, Coulter? Fantasy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, for the longest time,
that's why I'm bad at fantasy, because I cannot convince myself to draft players I don't like, because I don't want to be emotionally invested or try to root for guys that I just predisposed don't want to root for.
I understand that, and that's fine. But I also, like, you're invariably going to end up with guys, not even about the individual, but a guy who's going to be on a team that is, traditionally, it's Jacksonville or, Cleveland or whatever. Now this year, this sucks. I got a New York Giant on my team. What am I going to do? I got to find the Giants game because they're never going to be on national TV. But all of a sudden, a Thursday night game between Tennessee and Indianapolis that would have been, I don't know, just a shoulder shrug. Like, am I really going to sit here and watch this? All of a sudden, now granted, you're watching for an individual and maybe that belies something, but now all of a sudden you sit there and you got Delaney Walker as your tight end and you're screaming, come on, Mariota, get him the football, and now you're watching, this game with a level of interest that you would never, ever have had, ever. And that to me is the upside and the fun of fantasy in this instance, but also, like you're saying, of sports betting. But also, right, that's where you go, well, like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. If you place 100 bets, how you bet and how are you rooting for anyone? Like, it's only when you do it rarely that you're going to have that experience, right? Mm-hmm. When you sit up there. But in any case, sports gambling now legal. By the way, it sounds like Intralot is the name of the actual entity that has been granted the 7-year contract to conduct to actually do the work of creating and gathering the bets and presumably paying them out and all of that. So you have to have an entity to do that. So I know nothing about Intralot, but they have the contract for the next 7 years according to legalsportsreport.com. Okay, very good. Interesting day. See how this progresses. And, good deal. It's Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Hey, before we move on here to the Little Sullivans, I want to remind everybody, let you know, but it's Missoula Gives today. It's been going on since 5 yesterday, and it goes till 8 tonight. It's a 27-hour give-a-thon, for lack of a better words, where everybody is encouraged to donate to a charity of their choice through the Missoula Gives website, missoulagives.org. There are 155 nonprofits. You can pick whichever one or ones that you want to. You're not giving some money and it gets allotted. You specifically pick the ones that are meaningful, that are important to you. But it's an easy place both to collect everybody so that they're all in one location. Sometimes I think people don't even know some of the entities and the organizations that are out there doing some of this great work. And also, it's just a great community space where you do the drive. This happens kind of every year now. It's been growing each year here in Missoula. A goal of $500,000 this year in total is what they're looking to get. $420,000 was raised last year. They're looking to pass that by just a little bit. But it's going on right now until 8 o'clock tonight at MissoulaGives.org. There's also donation stations at the Missoula Gives headquarters, the Old Post, the Good Food Store, and at Art in the Park. So, it's a great thing. It's a community event. Everybody's kind of involved with things. So go to MissoulaGives.org and check that thing out. We'll talk about the Little Sullivan Awards and the finalists. That is to say, who are the best athletes, regardless of sport, in the state. I'll let you know who next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Hey folks, Ryan Tootell here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at MontanaAdvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate.
Good news. Missoulians can finally move into what we love best, being outside. Garden City Paint and Glass can help you get a head start on all those outside home improvement projects. Now is also a great time to start getting a jump on cracked windows and broken screens. Enjoy up to 25% off select products. And be sure to watch for PPG rebates to help the job along. Look good, stay comfortable, and keep energy costs down at Garden City Paint and Glass, 3217 Brooks or 549-0608.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, ooh, pump it up, pump it up.
Town Pump knows it's a beer and wine type of day. That's why we're happy to offer Modelo 12-packs for $11.99. And we've got your wine covered with our Sutter Home 750 milliliter bottles for a low $3.99. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
Springtime is the time to buy a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the spring sales event, rebates go as high as $1,500 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance racer. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $1,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Spring Sales event at Kurtz Polaris. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Recreate the right way with Kurtz Polaris, online at KurtzPolaris.com. Offer valid in U.S. through 5/31/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez. Happy Friday to you. The University of Montana men's basketball team had a busy day on the recruiting trail Thursday. The Grizz picked up a verbal commitment from 6'5" prep forward Jet Brasino out of Kentridge High School in Western Washington. UM also landed BYU grad transfer point guard Jashir Hardnett, a 6-foot senior who averaged just under 10 points a game last year. Kyle Hansen of the Missoulian also reporting the verbal commitments of Australian forwards Josh Bannon and Hunter Clark for the class of 2020.
The final Montana State men's basketball assistant coaching position was filled Thursday as head coach Danny Sprinkle announced Dan Russell is joining the staff. Russell has been a head coach of Casper College in Wyoming for the last 6 seasons. The Casper native led the Thunderbirds to one of the best years in program history last year, ending the 2018-2019 campaign with a 32-3 record. Casper College earned its first NJCAA Regional 9 championship in 23 years and made an appearance in the NJCAA Division I tournament. Russell was chosen as the Region 9 Coach of the Year.
Last season, Russell coached Isaac Bonton, a former Oregon Player of the Year from Portland, who spent half a season at Montana State. After much speculation that Russell would bring Bonton back with him to MSU, Bonton instead committed to Washington State on Thursday. NBA tonight, couple of games. Boston, Milwaukee, first up at 6.
Now they always say congratulations.
Denver versus Portland after.
Vacation. They ain't never had the dedication. People hating, say we changing, look, we made it.
Hi, how are you? Grand to be with you on this Friday.
I'm jumping out of band.
Ooh, counting it down, hour and a half left, Coulter. Sayonara. They're roasting a pig over open coals on a stick.
Love it.
I'm going to the Philippines. I realize as I say that now that somebody's listening and going, what in the world?
A lot of loyal listeners out there. Sometimes you got to realize there's new ones every day.
People coming and going. I'm headed for the Philippines. Right after this, I'm going to listen to Post Malone at full volume. Scream. I have driven this stretch, I don't know, 100 times, maybe more. Seattle and Missoula. Missoula, Seattle. And on a number of occasions, I have arrived at my destination just hoarse. From rapping and hardcore rock and roll, a little System of a Down, whatever it might be. You get in there, and the next thing you know, you're just like, you can't carry on a conversation for 5 minutes, but you do 6 hours of solo karaoke at full volume down I-90.
Classic.
Anyhow, looking forward to it. Don't let me forget sunglasses. I'm driving west at sunset. I gotta have.
Do you even have sunglasses?
I must say.
I don't know if I ever seen you wear sunglasses.
I don't wear sunglasses. I maybe have a pair. You know what I do? And I don't find this. I don't know. I don't think this is stealing exactly, but I get into the prize closet and I grab some U1045 glasses or some Jack sunglasses, and I roll with those. So I got a couple pair of station glasses over there. Coulter, it's time for our Prep Extra segment. It is brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. Check them out on farmersebank.com and also 9 Western Montana locations from the Bitterroot Valley in Missoula to Helena and Kalispell. Bank where you live, bank where you play. Farmers State Bank. The Little Sullivans Award finalists are out. And I think a lot of people maybe don't know what the Little Sullivan Award is, but particularly in Montana, it is significant, notably because there ain't no pro teams in the state of Montana.
Right.
So we are looking at the best athlete, regardless of sport, both men's and women's, in the state of Montana. But tell the folks first, Coulter, just what is the Little Sullivan Award in general?
Well, I actually erred by making this our Prep Extra because now that I'm reviewing it once again, the candidates, every single one of these people is someone that played high school sports in Montana, but they all are now in college. So I guess it does have a little prep element because they did play high school sports here in Montana.
Our collegiate extra segment
there you go.
Brought to us by the Farmers State.
Thanks, Farmers State Bank, for being with us anyways.
There you go.
But the Little Sullivan's given to the best amateur athlete. It's sponsored by the AAU, and every year, Little Sullivan's handed out. Last year, the Little Sullivan Awards went to Mac Bignell, Drummond native who played at Montana State, and Taylor Mims, Billings native from Billings Senior who played at Washington State and was all Pac-12 performer there.
And so it's not about did you play in the state of Montana.
This is if you're a Montana native.
You got to be born in Montana and then not a professional, and it's just over the last calendar year from award to award who's been the best performer over that space of time, no matter where they were. Italy, Spain, the Philippines, or Drummond. It does not matter where you are as long as you were born here and you're not a pro.
So this year's Little Sullivan finals for on the female side, Alicia Breen from Montana State Billings, women's basketball player. She's originally from Shoto. She set more than 20 school records during her career at MSUB. She was a first-team All-American, piloted the Yellow Jackets to their second ever NCAA Division II West Region title and an Elite Eight appearance. Scored 791 points in her senior year, 2,000 for her career. So I think unquestionably the greatest player in Montana State Billings history, and one of the great athletes ever to come out of Shoto, Montana. Haley Kopinga, she's a three-sport star at Billings Skyview, who went on to be a four-year starter at Rocky Mountain College. She was a first-team NAI All-American as a senior for the Battle Bears. McKenna Morley, who's originally from Big Fork, she started her career at the University of Montana, where she was a Big Sky champion. Then she transferred to the University of Colorado. Actually, I always say that wrong. Colorado University. It's actually CU. Colorado University. She helped Colorado win the Division I cross country championship last year. She's a 5-time collegiate All-American, one of the great distance runners to ever come out of Montana. This is the greatest stat I could drop on McKenna Morley. She was 4-time Montana Gatorade Runner of the Year.
She is the definition of a prodigy.
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 Straight out of, from her, she was 14 years old on, she was just, we knew that she was going to be what she is now. Sydney Stiles, she was a softball star from Bozeman High who currently attends Iowa State, playing for Jamie Pinkerton, former University of Montana coach. She started 56 games for the Cyclones at second base. She was a first-team All-Big Sky selection as a freshman here at the University of Montana, and then transferred with Pinkerton to Iowa State. She hit .285 for the Cyclones last year. The male finalist for the Little Sullivan Award, Brandon Weber from Forsyth. He captured an NAI national championship at Montana State Northern as a sophomore last year. And then as a junior, I guess that was 2 years ago. And this year, another outstanding season. Tucker Yates, Colstrip High School product, who was with Montana State football for the last 5 years. He's an all-conference player. One of the great high school wrestlers in the state of Montana, who then went on to be a incredibly durable and hard-nosed nose tackle. Mm-hmm. When you make 20 tackles for loss playing the position Tucker Yates played, all he was playing was eat-up blocks position, and then he still made plays, including most notably perhaps the most memorable play in the history of the Cat-Grizz rivalry when he punched the ball out on the goal line against Adam Eastwood.
Yep.
Trace Tickle, right here in Missoula, Montana, he's played 3 seasons so far at Oregon State. He just declared for the NBA draft but did not hire an agent, so he's getting evaluated. Probably expect Trace to come back for his senior year, and I likely...
You think so?
I do. I think that, a lot of different factors. I think when Trace Tinkle gets evaluated by NBA scouts, I think they'll tell him that he is a borderline first-round pick. And I think if he was to come out, he would be drafted in the first round, but it would be late, and there is a chance that he could fall to the second round. Whereas I think if he comes back and plays his senior year, then he's a surefire first-round pick. And he could play his way into being a lottery pick.
See, I'm not so sure.
Really?
I think he has achieved a very high watermark. Was he the Pac-12 Player of the Year?
He was not the Pac-12 Player of the Year, but he was first team All Pac-12.
Yeah, the kid from Washington was.
Yep.
He was first team All Pac-12 and in the conversation for Pac-12 Player of the Year, and buoyed an Oregon State team that ultimately did not make the tournament, but played well. And I understand the national perception of the Pac-12 and all that kind of thing, but he individually, he carved out a reputation for himself this season. And who knows who the Pac-12 is going to get if they have some one-and-dones coming through and that sort of thing. And I think we've seen this before, especially in football, but in basketball too, where you don't want to leave too early, but it is possible also to leave too late. And
it's an interesting point.
It certainly isn't that Trace Tinkle couldn't get better and be even better. Certainly that's possible and even likely. But even if he was better next year, Coulter, what do we say about Steph Curry? He's having statistically, the second best year of his career, if not the best year of his career? Nowhere to be seen when it comes to the MVP voting because of the landscape of the league and sort of the known quantity that he already is and all of that. A guy like Trace Tinkle, when he comes onto the scene, that really elevates his profile. Next year, it could be, what's the new flashy thing? Even if he's as good or even better than what he is this season. So I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I think if you can get in and say, hey, you are you are a surefire draftee and possibly a first rounder, I'd have to think long and hard about turning that one down.
I agree with you. I think that one key factor here is just remembering how close the Tinkles are as a family.
No doubt.
And I think that it's been a very special experience already for Trace to play for Wayne Tinkle. And, I think that if Trace Tinkle was to go to the NBA now and make it to the NBA, it's hard to knock it. But if he comes back to Oregon State, there's some unfinished business there. I mean, they went to the tournament one time, but they've largely been kind of on the outside looking in, not necessarily where they were once upon a time.
Right.
I think that there's a real factor that Wayne Tinkle's job status, just because of the "what have you done for me lately" culture in college basketball, he's going to be in a contract year, and I'm not really sure where Oregon State turns. I don't know how you're going to hire somebody that's better than Wayne Tinkle at Oregon State, but I think that's definitely a factor too. Trace coming back and playing for his dad to get his dad 21 season, to get his dad a new contract, get back to the NCAA tournament. But I think also, though, because they are so close and because they have communicated, I mean, some players leaving a legacy and etching your name in the history books, for some players that matters a lot, and for some players that doesn't matter at all. And I think that's Trace Tinkle falls in the former category. I think if Trace Tinkle could leave as the all-time leading scorer in the history of Oregon State and one of the all-time leading scorers in the history of the Pac-12, that would mean something to him, and I think that would be a cool accomplishment for him to have. And
do you think I could wear these pants to an Oregon State game?
Wish SWX could see ya.
We got this. If you're checking it out on the YouTube stream, Tootell and Nuanez YouTube channel, I got some very nice orange-based plaid pants today with some black in there as well. Got beaver colors going. Here's the thing about...
The other thing about Trace Tinkle is that, despite our proximity bias...
Sure.
I'll be straight up honest with you, man. I don't think Trace Tinkle will be a first-round pick this year. And I don't think that has anything to do with Trace Tinkle as much as it has to do with all the other guys that are in the draft.
Yeah. But, I mean, do you think... It could who knows, but it could be just as the same situation next year as well. But I think your point is one that's well made, which is like if you're looking at this from just from a NBA standpoint, I think there's a lot of things that say go, but also you cannot minimize that a kid, whoever he might be, just likes playing college basketball. I mean, look at Tim Duncan. They told Tim Duncan to go to the NBA.
Sophomore year.
His entire career that he was there at Wake Forest, he played all 4 years. Why? He wanted to be there. He liked it, and it was good. And you're right. I mean, the family tie, to play for your dad and all that. Is he thinking about, well, is my dad's contract going to be renewed if I don't go? I don't know. Maybe that thought has crossed his mind, and who knows how real that actually is. I don't know, because I mean, Oregon State has done nothing but be well above what they've really ever been, normally anyways, with Trace Tinkle as their head coach. But I think, that is and can be a significant pull.
NBADraft.net, which is probably the most comprehensive site in tracking and creating real-time mock drafts, has Trace Tinkle not being drafted.
Okay.
And, to put that into perspective, Chris Wilkes at UCLA is projected as a second-round pick in this. Carson Edwards from Purdue, projected as the 40th overall pick. Mm-hmm. Admiral Schofield from Tennessee, who I think we both would agree is probably a better pro prospect than Trace Tinkle, is projected as the 45th pick in this draft. So I think, it's just a testament to just how good some of these players are. But they also have, like a guy like Kyle Guy from Virginia, the point guard. He is projected to get drafted in this draft, and Trace Tinkle's a better NBA prospect than that guy. He just is. So, grain of salt for sure. But last Little Sullivan boys or man finalist, Jace McClain. He's a junior at North Dakota State. He's from Great Falls, CMR. This last year at NDSU, he hit 250, 31 runs batted in, 7 home runs, en route to being a second-team All-Summit League selection. And Jason McClain's interesting because I remember watching Jason McClain in high school as a quarterback, and I thought he was the best quarterback in the state of Montana. And then he never went anywhere, and there was not much fanfare on him signing with NDSU because he actually ended up playing Legion that summer after his senior year and then got on with NDSU after that. And I always wondered, what happened to that kid? He could spin it. And now I realize, well, he's actually just playing high-level college baseball, so good for him. But that's an interesting group for sure there. A wide variety of both male and female athletes for the Little Sullivan Award. But the award will be announced at the Red Lion Hotel in Billings, Montana. And the award banquet, let's see, Saturday, 7 p.m. So we will have, I will, I guess, have an update for you on Monday.
Very good. It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Quick break. We come back. Ryan Leaf returning to Great Falls, and we'll talk about his return and what's going on there right after this. Hey, Coulter and I cruised on over to the Coeur d'Alene Golf Resort. The sun is shining. Believe me, it's only getting better by the day over there, and it was great the day we went. But if you have not been, get online to cdaresort.com and book a stay and play, okay? Find an excuse to do it. If you haven't been, you got to go. If you have been, but it's been a while, tons of upgrades that they've gone through. $10 million renovation to the hotel. Huge renovations happening at the golf course as well. A brand new fleet of golf carts, USB ports. Of course, the world's only floating green, okay? And just an unbelievable course. The thing is, sometimes courses, Coulter, they have like signature holes, and certainly Coeur d'Alene does. But the layout of the whole course, when they said that number 13 is built after number 13 at Augusta, and all of a sudden you're standing there going, oh my gosh, yes it is. It's like a slight dogleg left, long par 5, got to go over a greenside creek, which I did not do successfully, by the way. Thanks for nothing, me. And you're going, whoa, like really, the whole course is like phenomenal. Did I say 13? I guess it's 12. But in any case, the par 3s on the front 9, 3 of the funnest holes that I have. Yeah. Why would I know how to be grammatically correct?
Should I tell my story how I almost got a hole in 3?
Put it in the water?
No, so I stuck it on the green there's 3 par 3s in the span of 5 holes there.
Yes.
And they're all really short. So you got to get, and they all have funky design, not funky, very unique and challenging designs to the greens. One of them looks like a 3-leaf clover with sand all the way around it and this big rock right in front of the pin. Mm-hmm. You had a nice shot on that hole. You almost actually aced that thing. But so I stuck it on the green on the first 2. It's feeling good. I was hitting my wedges and low irons, great. And then I get up onto the really, really highly elevated one, and it was about 165 yards downhill. So I was playing more like 145. So we all get up there with 9 irons, pitching wedges, and you guys all stick them.
All right.
And I top mine, and I hit it 3 feet into the bush ahead of me. And I said, I don't care. I don't want the drop. I don't want anything. I'll take a stroke. I'm lying 3 right here. And then I get up there, I hit it, and I almost dunk it. 2 inches. I said that would have been my luck to get my first hole-in-one on a picturesque course with Coeur d'Alene Lake in the background and have to write down a 3.
Yeah, that would have been your luck. Well, you're going to have stories to tell, so go online, cdaresort.com, cdaresort.com. Book your stay and play package today.
This Mother's Day, treat the Montana mom in your life to the Montana Club's famous Mother's Day buffet. She'll be dazzled as she savors everything from slow-roasted prime rib and glazed ham to fresh berry crepes and lemon bars. If mom wants to sleep in, bring her in later for our artfully crafted Mother's Day dinner specials like brandy peppercorn filet and steak and Maine lobster tail. Mother's Day buffet 8 to 2, followed by Mother's Day dinner specials 3 to close. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
At Opportunity Bank of Montana, they've been helping people with home loans for over 95 years. They're still here for you today with local lending professionals, local servicing, and a full range of real estate loan options and programs. It's your home and they're your hometown lender. Contact an Opportunity Bank mortgage lender today or visit them at opportunitybank.com. Your local mortgage lender, your opportunity. Member FDIC, Equal Housing
Hey,
Lender.
folks, the best season of the year is upon us. That's right, it's tax return season, and there's one place to have the most fun and make that refund check stretch further than anywhere else, Selway Armory. Selway Armory has the largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories of anywhere around, and they have the expertise to go with it. It's not everywhere that you can shop local and save money, but Selway Armory will meet or beat any box store price, and your money stays in Montana. It's tax return time, so get more bang for your buck at Selway Armory. Visit online at selwayarmory.com.
Last year, Missoulians donated $420,000 for Missoula Gives, our community's largest fundraiser. We hope to beat that today by raising $500,000 for local nonprofits. You can help us get there. Donate in person at one of our donor lounges or at the Missoula Gives headquarters downtown in the parking lot of the Old Post. You can also give online at missoulagives.org. That's missoulagives.org. No matter the size, every donation helps. Be the change for Missoula today. Thanks.
Hey everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you make a recovery. You'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Tootell and Nuanez. Listen to the podcast on the TuneIn Radio app or on iTunes, 1029ESPN.com.
Colton, you got to check my math on this. Tootell and Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com.
Tootell and Nuanez, live on the stream at 1029ESPN.com. The stream is available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Now for the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
Thank you, Jim. Poor communication between Jim and I there. Colter, you ready for this?
I am ready. Born ready.
The Chicago Cubs today shut out the St. Louis Cardinals 4-0. First of all, that should be enough to make everybody's weekend better.
Besides one guy.
It puts me up 1-0 on my season-long bet with Robert Chase. Robert Chase and I have a little Cubs versus Cardinals bet every year. So that's good. Kyle Hendricks, Colter, pitched a complete game shutout for the Cubs. He did it. I don't know how to say this to have the greatest effect. I'll just tell you. He did it in 81 pitches. Do you know what 81 pitches is? If you struck out every single batter that you faced and did not throw a ball, you would do it in 81 pitches.
He has 9 pitches per inning, so that's only 3 pitches per batter.
3, and that's how many you need to make a strike. Now, obviously, that would never happen.
How many hits did he give up?
3.
So that's even more impressive because that means the pitch count was even lower because he had base runners on.
First pitch swinging outs all day long for Kyle Hendricks. 81 pitches, man. That's just stunning. That is stunning that he would to go out and be able to do that. Anyway, phenomenal. The Cubs needed it, and the St. Louis Cardinals have lost 2 in a row. Look out! Here comes the cliff. The Cardinals going right over the edge.
I got a piece of trivia for you.
Okay.
So Krishan Dixon, Trayvon Strong's younger brother, from Billings Central, was in Faces in the Crowd in Sports Illustrated.
Right.
The Billings Gazette, Jeff Welsh, the sports editor, of 406MTsports.com, in fact, all the Lee Enterprise newspapers. He did a kind of a retrospective look back at the first 10 Montanans to to ever appear in Faces in the Crowd in Sports Illustrated.
Oh, okay, cool.
There's 10 between 1958 and 1966, which is very cool. The first Montanan to ever appear in Sports Illustrated Faces in the Crowd, his name was Jack Daniels.
Is that right? Of course it was.
Of course it was. Jack Daniels was a durable Army lieutenant from Missoula and an old hand at the modern pentathlon grind. He led all scorers with 4,669 points in the 5-day event, helping USA win the 4-nation pentathlon competition in San Antonio in 1958.
I got another piece of trivia for you, since we're doing this. You know this already, and we even said it on this show, but I don't think we gave it its due because it's maybe the most stunning thing that I'm aware of in sports. I got this from I got it from the Dan Le Batard show, but Tim Kirchin was on. And by the way, if you ever want to have some fun, just YouTube Tim Kirchin's baseball knowledge on the Le Batard show. And they're looking for quote-unquote average players from the 90s. And Tim Kirchin, every player they name, he doesn't know who's on the list. He just starts ranting about all of their numbers, all their wins and losses, what they did, how many World Series they did, and whether they should be categorized as average or not. You can't believe it. You won't even know half of the guys' names, much less anything about them. That's why they were quote-unquote average. And then he's just in there giving it to you. Anyway, Ken Griffey Jr. In high school, not in the state of Montana, in a state where you can play high school baseball, never struck out.
Never.
Did not strike out in all of high school. 4 years of baseball, never got struck out. I mean, come on.
Unbelievable.
It's beyond unbelievable. It's truly dumbfounding.
You know what's more unbelievable than Ken Griffey Jr. never striking out in high school?
What?
Ken Griffey Jr. hitting home runs in the major leagues when he's 19 years old.
I mean,
Ken Griffey Jr. playing in a game with his dad?
Yeah.
Because he's so good?
Yes.
I mean, how is that even possible?
It's not possible.
That is one of the things that's never going to happen again, right? Unless LeBron James does it. If LeBron James' son goes one and done in high school, maybe he can get to the NBA and play.
I mean, I could see it happening. I could see it happening in a couple of sports. Because some of these, I mean, Tom Brady's what? 41? What if Adam Vinatieri's got kids in high school?
This is like such a mean thing to say, but I cannot imagine Tom Brady having any sort of child that would become a pro athlete.
It's not that mean.
Right?
No.
Like when you're like, oh, LeBron's son, he'll for sure be in the NBA, right? And you're like, Tom Brady's son, you're like, well, he'll for sure be a model.
No. Tom Brady's kid is going to be like a upper management of a successful firm.
Goldman Sachs.
Yeah. No, not.
Great tweet by Kevin Van Valkenburg today. Somebody was tweeting about how Tom Brady's like this underdog story. Oh, somebody said a tweet that said, there's been many great late bloomers throughout American and world history, including people like Tom Brady. And Kevin Van Valkenburg just tweeted, said, wait, but Tom Brady was drafted by the Montreal Expos out of high school in baseball and also chose Michigan over Michigan State and I believe the other one was Minnesota. He's a Big Ten quarterback recruit and a drafted baseball player. This guy's not some underdog.
Some late bloomer. Bill Walton tweeted out tonight on ESPN, the time has come. Celtics, then Blazers playing at home. The crowd, the atmosphere, the scene, the pressure. This is what we live for. Here we go. Roar on. Bring it home. And then pictures of him as a Blazer and a Celtic.
Is this the most we've ever gone off the script?
No. Ryan Leaf, next.
Alpine Touch is legendary around the state of Montana for providing delicious seasonings for every grilling occasion. Now, Alpine Touch offers so much more, from a savory new barbecue sauce to spicy pepper blends to tasty barbecue rubs. In addition to the classic, Alpine Touch has a variety of seasoning salts for whatever you need to spice up. Now that the holidays are over, Alpine Touch makes a perfect thank you gift to show your friends and relatives you love them. Alpine Touch, available at retail locations around Montana or online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 Open Range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds. It's May, and here in Montana, there is plenty to celebrate. Graduations, Mother's Day, Memorial Day, sunshine, and a full summer ahead. For last-minute gifts or just a good stop on a road trip from here to there, be sure to include Florence Coffee Company. We have reloadable gift cards, good travel mugs, and a full menu of delicious drinks. Celebrate May by stopping at any Florence Coffee Company's 19 locations in western Montana or go to florencecoffeeco.com.
For 61 years, a handshake has meant something at Rangich Brothers RV, offering the best quality, reliability, and savings in western Montana. And to say thanks, we're celebrating all May long during our May Days anniversary sale. To celebrate, we are offering exclusive deals on Jayco models, like a new Jayco bunkhouse travel trailer, starting at only $129 per month OAC. Or celebrate the great outdoors with a new 2019 Jayco Red Hawk Class C motorhome. Anniversary priced at only $58,750. Stop in, save big all May long during our May Days anniversary sale. Only where a handshake means something, Rangich Brothers RV Center.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Hey, how are you? Good to be with you. Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news. The University of Montana men's basketball team had a busy day on the recruiting trail Thursday. The Grizz picked up a verbal commitment from 6'5" prep forward Jet Brasino out of Kent Ridge High School in Seattle, outside Seattle in Kent. UM also landed BYU grad transfer point guard Jashire Harden, a 6-foot senior who averaged just under 10 points per game last season. Kyle Hansen of the Missoulian also reporting the verbal commitments of Australian forwards Josh Bannon and Hunter Clark for the class of 2020.
Montana became the first state to legalize sports betting this year after Governor Steve Bullock signed a bill Friday for the state lottery to oversee a system of wagering through kiosks and mobile apps that could be running by this fall. Montana is at the head of a wave of states passing legislation this year to allow gambling on sports, and it becomes the 7th state to legalize the practice of gambling since the U.S. Supreme Court allowed it nationwide last year.
In the NBA tonight, 2 games. First, Boston and Milwaukee as the series shifts back to Boston. This is Game 3. That series is tied at 1 game apiece. And back in Portland for Game 3 of the other Western Conference semi-series, Denver against the Trail Blazers. That game at 8:30. Milwaukee-Boston can be heard right here on 102.9 ESPN Radio. How are you? We failed to get to Ryan Leaf in the last segment. We'll get to him now. We'll also talk some NBA. It's Tootell Nuanez. It's 102.9 ESPN Radio. It's YouTube, Tootell Nuanez, and it is later the Tootell Nuanez podcast, which is brought to us by Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app and on iTunes and on Spotify. So you can listen to anything that you missed or anything you want to share, all that kind of stuff. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Coulter, Ryan Leaf went back to CMR, where he played high school football. Hadn't been there in over 20 years and hadn't been in Great Falls since, maybe his ultimate rock bottom low, where he was breaking into neighbors' homes for looking for pills and was arrested and then sent to jail. And a mighty and precipitous fall from glory for Ryan Leaf, who was of course, as we know, the second overall pick in the NFL draft, behind Peyton Manning, and a complete bust in the NFL, and then a life of addiction and of sort of narcissism, I guess, in there.
Entitlement.
Everything. Just all of the bad things to the nth degree, from, arrogant to selfish to, addiction and everything else. And somewhere along the line, I don't know the story of where that came from. I know that he is a Christian and has, that his found an inspiration in religion or in God to, change his ways. But how that kind of came about, I don't know. But you have to say at this point, I mean, we are talking about years and years now of very public, open acknowledgement of who he was and how he has changed and what his new life is like. And I mean, I don't know if this is all that he does, but certainly part of his career vocation, however you want to cash it out, is public speaking and is telling his story to hopefully help others. And so we can talk about Ryan Leaf a little bit more, but it's interesting because yesterday he went back to Great Falls, where he has not been. And I imagine in a situation like this, for as many times as you tell your story and as many times as maybe you get a little bit used to what it's like to be so revealing. People don't like to be revealing, but certainly if you are able to do that and you wish to do that, over time it becomes, I imagine, easier to do. But yet it would be something to go back to your old hometown, one that you kind of left in the dust, so to speak, as you went on your way. And frankly, a town that kind of said, don't let the door hit you if that's the way you want to be as well. To go back there and to do that, it's got to be a very odd, if not difficult experience. And he went and did that yesterday.
In Montana, we have as much pride for our state in being from our state as any populace in the entire country, unquestionably.
Yeah.
And if you are a favorite son of Montana, you achieve on the national level in any form or fashion, you are so loved and revered forever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about the guys that are from the towns that have played in the NFL. I mean, like Colt Anderson will never have to buy a beer in Butte, Montana the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Chase Reynolds, he could be the king of Drummond if he wanted to be,
I think he is.
He is, right. And we love our, not just athletes, anybody that's accomplished anything from Montana.
Yep.
I mean, look at J.K. Simmons, University of Montana alum, great actor. And so
Jeff Ament,
on down the line, to have the tragic, sad, unfortunate story of Ryan Leaf be perhaps the highest anybody from Montana has ever risen in the professional sports ranks, and then the most stark and vicious and, just so many different words to describe the fall from grace by Ryan Leaf.
Right.
It's astounding. It's an astounding thing. And, on one hand, I got a lot of respect for Ryan Leaf for finally bucking up and facing his demons and speaking the truth. Because you talk about rock bottom. I mean, this guy got arrested for breaking into people's houses in Texas, and he had to move home to Great Falls. He was on probation, awaiting trial. He got arrested in Great Falls, stealing pills from somebody's house, posted bond, and was arrested less than 48 hours later. At that point, that indicates to me that you are no longer a person. You can think of whatever you want of Ryan Leaf previously, and his antics, his arrogance, his immaturity, the way that he represented or lack thereof stained the reputation of the state of Montana during his time at Washington State and then in the NFL. He's no question one of the biggest flops in the history of the league. But with all that aside, when you talk about a guy who is on trial for a crime in a different state, on probation, living in his hometown, and he gets arrested for stealing drugs twice in the span of less than 48 hours, that person has lost their soul. This person, I mean, at that point, you are a slave to the drug. You're not. There's no decision making happening. You have to have this pill, and in his case, you have to have this Vicodin. Mm-hmm. For him to hit that rock bottom, and then to serve hard time in prison, and then to come back from that, and now be facing his truth. I don't think I'll ever like Ryan Leaf, and I don't know if anybody ever can, because of just how abrasive he was when he was in the public eye. But you can't not respect the guy. Because I don't care who you are, the amount of courage that it takes to stand in front of a room of people in your hometown and talk about how much you embarrassed them. I mean, again, we love our favorite sons more than anything. He was the most hated person in the entire city of Great Falls. There's no question about it.
Right.
And that's a horrible circumstance for anybody to be involved in. You know, like at CMR, they took down all his records because then this was long before he even flopped in the NFL, because he disowned Montana. He told a reporter in an interview when he was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy that they asked him about his Montana roots and how much that influenced him. And he said, no, I'm not from Montana. I claim Washington. Washington's my home state. Well, see you later. If you're from Montana, we're like, see you later. But regardless of any of that, again, I don't know if I could ever get to myself to actually like Ryan Leaf, because I do think that drug addiction and the flopping of his career in the NFL aside, I just thought he was a very abrasive, unlikable character during his sports career. But to face the music, so to speak, like he did, and to do what he did, I mean, he doesn't have to go back to Great Falls. No. That was the first time he said that was the first time he stepped foot in Great Falls CMR since 1994. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. To do that as a part of your truth, I mean, that's what he said. He said, I'm not just here speaking for money or anything, or even to change your life. This is my truth. This is the way that I have to reveal my demons to stay sober. And to take that step and do that in front of former peers, former teachers, you know, people that either have hated or probably still do hate you, that takes a tremendous amount of courage. And so on that note, I do respect Ryan Leaf, even if I don't know if I ever will like him, so to speak, at any point.
On the likability factor, certainly one of the least likable characters that has come through the sports world, you know, at that time. But also, without question, that attitude and that person, that way, that mode of being precipitated and was inextricably tied to all the other things that happened. Why he wasn't a flop in the NFL because he couldn't play. This guy is the biggest in terms of stature, arm, skill, ability. It's all there. His not being able to play had nothing to do with football. It had to do with him. And attitude was a huge part of that, and the abrasiveness, but it's also the entitlement that led to his inability to succeed at any level in the NFL and ultimately into drug use after that. And so my thinking on this is it would be pretty remarkable if he was doing all this and also still maintained the abrasive character that he once was. So I'll say this. I've never met Ryan Leaf. I've never spoken to him, never even interviewed him.
I have interviewed him one time.
And whatever he was has appeared to be and has been backed up by action and time. Wasn't just like, hey, last month I decided I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right, he's been sober for 7 years now.
For 7 years, and now, as you said, he doesn't have to do this stuff. He's doing it because he wants to. He wants to be helpful for others and also needs to, probably for himself as well, to continue to stay on the path that he needs to stay on. I couldn't think more highly of Ryan Leaf. I really couldn't. I mean, if
that's the line, that's the line you have to toe, right? Is the respect for him, even if you don't like him,
sure.
Right?
And you don't have to like him. That's fine. And
he also occupies a very unique position because, like you said, we've never talked to this guy. So, like, judging if we actually like him, we don't actually know. We've never hung out and drank coffee with him.
Yes.
You're just judging that you don't like him. You don't like his persona, his athlete.
And I don't have that. I assume, first of all, I try to assume that I'm going to like everybody that I haven't met yet. And I assume that about Ryan Leaf. And the evidence for that is, I think you're talking about a complete and utter about face, including character, personality, and all of that. The other thing, too, though, you know what I think to me is the worst part, it would be the worst part of all of this for him personally, would have been the embarrassment. To have been so high and fallen so far and to flame out in the NFL and then to be a drug addict living at home being busted for breaking and entering in Great Falls, Montana publicly, and just the scorn and the scoffing. And, he went to some fight, some boxing match shortly after he was in the NFL, and clearly it was not going well, and maybe he was even out. And the PA announcer, announced celebrities in the crowd, and he got announced and got booed by these are not football fans. This is not a football game. Got booed just for being him there. And the stark realization that, he had the impression that you have had of him to everybody, and the embarrassment that comes with that, and then having to admit to that later on in life, it's not easy to do. I think the embarrassment is often the thing that is most disabling for people who are trying to change their ways, because it's not even that they don't have the courage to face up to what they've done, but they don't want to have to look others in the eye and deal with the shame that kind of comes with that. And he had the most public of shame. And then to go and do this, I mean, there's places that I don't like to go to this day because of things that happened 20 years ago. And it's nothing. I don't have any sort of quote unquote shameful embarrassment thing that any other human being that's grown up in the United States of America has, anything other than just, oh yeah, I did also go to high school with a million other people or whatever. That's the sort of thing where to have to do that publicly is tremendously, I would think, hard and excruciating, and probably easier with time. But I think the world of Ryan Leaf, and I applaud him. It's Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Coulter, can we do a little bit of NBA?
I'm totally down. I got a lot to say about the NBA.
Well, let's talk about last night. Because after the 76ers game 1 in Toronto, it just didn't look good. And I thought that Toronto did look very good. They pull out game 2 in Toronto, and they come back to Philadelphia, and they seem to find something. And that something is Joel Embiid. And it's like, well, why did you have to find him? But there's different ways to find him. But the big man was dominant last night. And you and I we've had this ongoing conversation for days, if not weeks now, about what is the best thing to do if you're the Philadelphia 76ers with the 76ers. What do you do with the team? What pieces need to move? Do any pieces need to move? And if they do, why? What do you need? Is Ben Simmons a net good or a net bad to the 76ers? I think we both agree he's a net good, but he should be a net better. He would be better elsewhere, potentially. Should you move him? All that. When you watched the game last night, what did you see?
Well, first of all, I saw – we've talked about this a lot. In terms of just their value as assets, when you combined – current ability, upside, age, potential, star power, all those things. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are two of the 10 best assets in the league. What I saw last night, though, was Joel Embiid is untradeable. If you have him, you are foolish if you get rid of him under any circumstances.
No question. And we never suggested
No,
that,
never did.
we?
But also I think that there's an overwhelming thought in the NBA that so I think that Joel Embiid's
don't mind me.
You okay over there?
I got a rolling desk. My foot slipped and I kicked it. We're all right.
Joel Embiid's
Joel
Embiid.
Joel. Okay. That's
Joel Embiid's I would say comp or like highest. I mean, Joel Embiid's ceiling. What he could be is Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson mixed, which is transcendent. One of the great players ever to play. Ben Simmons' absolute ceiling is Magic Johnson. And if you were to trade Ben Simmons and the 1% chance that he became Magic Johnson came true, that would haunt you for sure. But I still think that even though Magic Johnson is one of the great players ever, it's just so much even more rare to have a guy like Joel Embiid because of how he's built and his body. On the flip side of that, though, Ben Simmons has almost no history of injuries.
Yes.
And Joel Embiid has an insane history of injuries.
Yes.
And what do we know about big guys?
Not good.
When they get hurt, lower extremity injuries for guys that are over 7 feet tall almost never end well. But what I saw last night, more than just the on-the-block scoring, more than just the athleticism and just the intimidation and the showmanship, Joel Embiid, when he is truly locked in, is an absolutely generational defensive player. He had a couple blocks last night that made you laugh out loud because they were just so ridiculous. And I came to the decision last night. I've always
5 blocks, 10 boards.
I've leaned towards Embiid in this argument forever, but it was confirmed for me last night.
Okay, but here's the question. It's never been for us, either of us, on the table that Embiid is one of the guys who you would consider moving. It's always who do you bring in. But my question is, are you still of the persuasion that Simmons is a guy that should move? Can they do it together? Can they do it together?
I think so I think that the only way that they could do it together is if they go back to the way that their team was constructed last year. This is, again, it just goes back to the dead horse I've been beating for 2 years now on the show, is that more better players does not necessarily make you better. Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler are both way better than Marco Bellinelli or Ilyasova or all those spot shooters that they had last year. They're way better individually. But the Sixers are better, and Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are better with Ilyasova and Bellinelli than they are with Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, just because of the way that basketball works. There's only one basketball. They need spot shooters to play the style that they play. Well, I was thinking about this last night. There's so many different combos of guys on that team. Say you were to unload Embiid, which I think would be foolish. But if you were to choose Simmons, then I do think you could keep Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris, and they would both be better than they are right now with the current construction of the team. Mm-hmm. If you get rid of Ben Simmons, I think you could still keep Jimmy Butler and add a third piece, another ball handler, and Jimmy Butler would still be better there than right now. Right now, what they have, again, even though they won a big game last night, and they're probably going to win that series, I just don't think it's perfect. And that leads me into my next point. You made a comment on Tuesday that we were arguing, if the Sixers make it to the conference finals or the Sixers make it to the finals, is that good enough? Well, it is good enough. They've gone through the process. They tanked for years and years. They got multiple number one picks. They got these transcendent talents. So getting to the finals is certainly affirmation for the process coming to fruition. But I do think that there's different benchmarks for different franchises, but also it just comes down to assets. If you were the Portland Trailblazers and you make it to the conference finals, run it back. You're saying, reload, let's go. Maybe you pick up a piece for depth here or whatever, but you're not going and you're not out there trying to completely remake the makeup of your team. You're not going all in to trade for another superstar or anything like that. I think that with the Blazers how they are now, if you get to the conference finals, you say that's awesome. Our 2 stars are young, the rest of our roster is relatively young. Run it back. Let's go. We'll figure out a way to try to get to that next step. I think the same thing with the Nuggets. I think if this Nuggets team made it to the conference finals or the finals, run it back. Let's do it again. The difference is, I think if you're the Sixers, you have the assets, especially guys and the guys that they are expendable because their lack of symmetry together if the Sixers made it to the conference finals or the finals this year and they don't win the championship, I think they certainly explore trading everybody on their roster with the exception of Embiid. Because say you traded Ben Simmons to the Pelicans and you got Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a better fit for Joel Embiid. They could play high-low together. And that would give you, unquestionably the best defensive front line in the NBA. Maybe the best defensive front line in the NBA in 20 years. Since Tim Duncan and David Robinson played together, that's the best front line defensively that you could find if you had Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid together. Or you could trade Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris for someone else. Say that they added Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. I don't know if that's on the table or not. I just think that there's a variety of options out there where the Sixers could pivot, and because they have pieces to work with, they could pivot. If you're the Blazers, you don't have the assets, because the assets you have that could garner you elite level players, you're not trading those guys. Yeah. If you're the Nuggets, you're not trading Jokic to anybody for anything.
Here's the thing. First of all, you're absolutely right. And by the way, the Nuggets and the Trailblazers, no matter what happens, whichever team loses this series, they have to run it back because they don't have assets to go out and get the guys that you're talking about.
Right.
If I'm Philadelphia, though, here's the thing. You have to think long and hard truly about Anthony Davis, if he was on the table, if he was a possibility, in terms of pairing him with Embiid, because it looks great, and in a lot of ways it would be great. And as great as frontline defense has never been less important than it is right now. Perimeter defense has never been of a greater import, and that is certainly not to say that frontline defense is not important. It's absolutely critical, but you also have to be able to guard outside. And if you got two giant 7-footers who won't allow it one shot in the paint to even go up, but you only have 3 guys that can guard beyond the arc, you are in trouble in today's NBA, it seems to me. So that's just one consideration. The other consideration, though, more to the point, is this: if you could get Kawhi Leonard for Ben Simmons, I would not do it. I would not do it. You know why?
Age.
Losing 8 years.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
If you could get Anthony Davis, he's young, he's going to be with you for a long time, that's great. But you have to get now and the future for a guy like Ben Simmons. You can't just go get, we could get LeBron James. I wouldn't trade it for LeBron James at all. And LeBron James is twice the player Ben Simmons is.
Yep.
But he's not going to be in 3 years, maybe in 2.
Yeah. The number one thing that stuck with me with that Brett Brown podcast I listened to when he sat down with Zach Lowe, was Brett Brown asked him, he said, what do you think is the biggest issue with Ben Simmons shooting, and what are you guys going to do about it? And Brett Brown said, man, you have no idea how hard Ben Simmons works. Brett Brown said that he's been around some of the all-time great shooters, and that Ben Simmons does as many shooting workouts as anybody in the league and anybody he's been around, and that his work ethic is peerless. He said he's the hardest worker on the team, not close. Ben Simmons just turned 22. That's where it creeps into your mind. That it's going against my own argument. Embiid is so good, and he's going to get better, but he's going to get a little bit better. What happens if Ben Simmons actually learns how to shoot? And he has a full, again, he just turned 22. Mm-hmm. If he straight up can't shoot for 4 more years, but he still keeps doing these shooting workouts, what happens that day that he turns on the light bulb and then all of a sudden he can shoot?
Well, here's the other thing I'd say to that. Maybe the reason that he can't be a shooter is maybe he's just a bad shooter. And you're always going to improve, you would think, if you continue to work that hard at something. But I would also say this. If you have a guy who at 22 years of age has already owned what it is to be a professional basketball player in the way that he goes about it and has the talent that Ben Simmons has, it's a much harder piece to part with because what we see in the games. And obviously that's ultimately what matters. But you go, well, the the things he can't do, what if he had a guy that could do those things, and what would that look like? And then, if you didn't have Embiid clogging a lane for a guy who has to be ball dominant and driving to be as effective as he can be, well, how does that work? But if you have a kid who is grinding already with the talent, with the number one overall pick, because there's question marks about that. Oh, you didn't go to class at LSU? No, look, plenty of one and dones don't go to class, okay? This isn't about Ben Simmons or whatever, but, what level of engagement do you have with anything at all, or are you just like the kid who turned out to be 6'10" and a great basketball player? How much work are you putting in here? If he's putting in that kind of work, that makes it a much harder decision when it comes time to trade for anyone, because you assume that the potential that's there is going to be largely met.
Russell Westbrook can't shoot, right?
I mean,
he can't shoot. He shot 28% from three this year. He's a 30% three-point shooter in his career.
Okay.
Russell Westbrook still made 119 three-pointers this year while shooting 28%. Not great, but 119 threes. Ben Simmons has never made a three-pointer in his NBA career.
He's only shot like 2 of them.
No threes. That's a crazy position to be in. And then also the fact is that even though he averaged 17 points per game this year, it's all off penetration.
Sure.
He's a career 57% free throw shooter.
Right.
That's a concern too.
Definitely.
But the thing is, though, the free throws will absolutely come around once he gains the mental maturity to just be able to execute in games. And if he could become a 75% free throw shooter, now all of a sudden he's averaging 22 per game. Mm-hmm. And again, Magic Johnson never averaged more than 22 points per game in a season. It was the 11 and 12 assists. And that's why I think if you say Ben Simmons did go to a team like the Pelicans, or just a non-contender, and he's just played with a bunch of middle-of-the-road NBA players, but he had no one to default to. It's all him, pushing the ball, running the break, getting up and down. He's averaging 10 assists a game. There's no doubt. Maybe 12. Because right now, so often, they get in their half-court offense, and he just throws it right down to Embiid, and Embiid dribbles around and spins around and does his thing. There's no assist on that play. If Ben Simmons is completely controlling the tempo of the game, I think that Ben Simmons would put up ridiculous numbers. Now, what does that translate into as far as wins go? I'm not sure. All I know is the Sixers, I think they're going to win this series. I think that they are among the most talented and stacked teams in the league. I still think that they need to make one or two more moves in this offseason to become true championship contender. And after watching what I watched last night, I'm keeping Embiid.
It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Boston, Milwaukee tonight, Denver, Portland tonight. Both of those games shifting venues, both of those games tied at 1 apiece. I want to talk about the Western and Eastern Conference semis that we're going to see here in about 30 minutes from now. And also, we may get into a little bit of MSU basketball as well. Stick around. It's Tootell Nuanez, ESPN Radio.
Hey everybody, Ryan Tootell, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate. Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Alpine Touch is legendary around the state of Montana for providing delicious seasonings for every grilling occasion. Now, Alpine Touch offers so much more, from a savory new barbecue sauce to spicy pepper blends to tasty barbecue rubs. In addition to the classic, Alpine Touch has a variety of seasoning salts for whatever you need to spice up. Now that the holidays are over, Alpine Touch makes a perfect thank you gift to show your friends and relatives you love them. Alpine Touch, available at retail locations around Montana or online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Down come who? Pump it up! Pump it up!
When you're thirsty, Town Pump has your back. Stop in today for Miller and Coors 18-pack cans for $16.99. We've also got 5-hour energy shots, 2 for $5. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Some so-called sports bars, you spend so much time fighting to see the TV, you're better off just staying home. Others show the game, but a basket of stale rye chips is not exactly your idea of a good game grub. At the Desperado, you get front row seats to every single spring baseball and NASCAR event, plus all the spring NBA and NHL postseason action. And with juicy burgers, ice-cold brews, and the best wings in town, you'll leave the Desperado satisfied whether your team won or lost. The Desperado Sports Tavern, where the emphasis is sports, food, and good times. On South Russell, across from the Y.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Hey, don't worry, we're here just hanging out in the hall on a Friday, not paying attention. Guess what? Montana, they legalized sports betting. Steve Bullock, the governor, passed it through today. The 7th state in the union to legalize sports betting. So the Supreme Court put the action on the table. Montana projected to make $3.7 million in revenue next year.
The University of Montana men's basketball team had a busy day recruiting on Thursday. The Grizz picked up a verbal commitment from 6'5" prep forward Jet Bursino out of Kent Ridge High School outside Seattle. UM also landed BYU grad transfer point guard Jashir Hardnett, a 6-foot senior who averaged just shy of 10 points per game last season. Now, Hansen and Missoulian also reporting that the commitments of Australian forwards Josh Bannon and Hunter Clark were accepted for the class of 2020. The water dispenser's slow, Colter. What's going on? Hi! We don't have a lot of time left, my friends. I'm going to go home, put my backpack in a minivan, drive to the West Coast, fly to the East Coast.
Such contrasting feelings on the two sides of this desk.
Boys and girls, it's Coulter's birthday on Sunday. And you see my man out there? Act accordingly. Pick my man up. Get him a little something. Okay? Get him a little treat for his birthday when you see him out there. Okay? He's going to be out. You got a big weekend planned. I must say, while I am thrilled to be heading off and going to the Philippines, If I could move back this whole thing 48 hours, I would be real happy. Real happy. But alas, such is life. I have to fly on Cinco de Mayo. You have to have a birthday on Cinco de Mayo. Great day to have a birthday.
Indeed.
The guy's got to be born. It's a good day to be born. It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83. And Sealy online, kurtzpolaris.com. 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Coulter, I want to talk about the games tonight a little bit. Can we do that?
Yep.
Do you want to do the sprinkle thing? Give us 60 seconds on the Sprinkle press conference today, because I know you listened to it.
There was a little media session. Danny Sprinkle today. A couple of the television reporters in Bozeman and Paul Schwelson from the Bozeman Chronicle were there, and then myself, I was conference called in, so I got to ask Danny a couple questions too. And I would say the biggest pieces of news out of that thing, Luke Fennelly, who was on Brian Fish's staff as an assistant. Well, first he was the director of operations, and then he was as a full-time assistant. He will remain on staff as the director of ops again. So Luke is a guy I know well, and he's a great guy, and I'm happy for him to still have a job there. Sprinkle talked a little bit about each of his three other assistants. He said that Chris Haslam's relationship with the current players was irreplaceable, and he loved his work with big men. If you've ever seen Chris Haslam, well, Chris Haslam's the biggest man I know. He is 7 feet tall.
and not just tall.
Oh, no, he is wide, and he's
a big man.
Big man, and he played professional basketball overseas in Europe for, I think, 11 or 12 years, so he has great acumen and skill, and I think the greatest testament in the last couple of years to Chris Haslam's individual coaching is Devin Kirby. Devin Kirby couldn't catch a pass when he got to Montana State, and he was a legitimate, good Big Sky player a year ago.
And seems like it's just, again, huge, but just a sophomore.
Right. If he makes the same jump he made from this year to next year, he's an all-league guy. And if he makes the same jump in 2 years, I mean, look out. He's a transcendent player in the Big Sky Conference. I don't know if that's necessarily that's a lot of expectation to heap on a kid, but Chris Haslam's done a good job.
Yes, yeah.
I talked about Sean Durden. Sean Durden was a guy who worked for Brad Hughes for a long time, and then has been an assistant at North Dakota, and then a head coach at the D2 level in Oklahoma. And he really liked Durden's ability to relate to players and also just recruiting ties. And then he spoke very highly of Dan Russell as well, who's the last addition to the staff, came over from Casper College. And the one interesting part, Lassi Nikarinen declared his transfer yesterday, and so Montana State has some gaps on its roster. And I asked Coach Sprinkles straight up, I said, do you want balance on your roster? Do you want to fill the classes? Because right now, Caleb Belich is the only guy that's going to be in their freshman class. Quentin Gilliford and Zeke Quinlan, the only guys in Montana State's sophomore class. And so those are some serious gaps in the underclassmen. And so how do you fill those in? And Sprinkle said it is definitely a priority of his in recruiting as he enters this summer period to go out and fill those gaps in the classes. So I would expect transfers, but also transfers maybe that aren't juniors and seniors, maybe transfers that are guys that are coming off a redshirt year that might sit out to fill a class, or as a redshirt sophomore to fill a class. And the last thing I thought was interesting was there is spring ball in basketball where you can have a couple hours of practice a week and develop some guys and stuff like that. And I asked Danny Sprinkle about spring ball, and he said that the players worked out with Chris Haslam individually, and they had some open gyms, but they did not have spring ball. They did not have practice. And Sprinkle said, he's been out recruiting, trying to fill his staff, and he wants to, before he sees the team that was play, he wants to fill all the holes before he sees the team that is, before he evaluates the whole thing. So I thought that was interesting that he's kind of leaving it on an individual basis, trusting his evaluation of last year's film, trying to bring in a lot of his own guys, and then they'll try to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah. All right, it's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Very good, Coulter. Excellent work, as always. SkylineSportsMT.com if you're looking for more in-depth on all that. Bucks, Celtics, in about 20 minutes. We'll have that for you on ESPN Radio here. Evened up at one game apiece. Neither of the first two games were close, both 20-point games. The Bucks went on a 28-4 run through the last 7 minutes of the third quarter and the opening minute of the fourth in Game 3, and really it was that 8-minute stretch that was the ball game in what was a very close game at halftime. How much, and then also, and then I'll put this together, Denver is at Portland. How much does the shift in venue, particularly to me the Portland series, but how much does the shift in venue matter in these series, if at all, to you?
Well, I think it depends on which series you're talking about. I think the shift in venue in this Denver-Portland series is tremendous.
That's
because these two teams have distinctly unique and also very decided home court advantages.
Does it become, even at the professional level, an encumbrance to play at home because of you have the crowd behind you and all that, but then also you can start to feel some of that pressure, especially if it's a close game down the stretch, and the fans kind of can get that way a little bit. I don't think it happens in the NBA that much, but I have sensed that at times where teams have seemed to play better on the road, maybe because they just are looser, and especially usually it comes with a team that's got a history, and Portland has exercised some demons by winning their playoff series against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but their playoff history with Damian Lillard as the centerpiece is not good. I mean, it's got one success and another one now with the win over OKC, but I mean, losers of 10 straight and 3 straight years out and 2 straight sweeps in the postseason and all that. It seems like when you are a team that comes into a game with that sort of baggage and into a series with that sort of baggage, the fans are really hopeful, but then there's the, oh, here we go again thing that can creep in there when games start to get close. In a game like this, in a Game 3 in a 1-1 series, maybe not so much, but especially start going Game 4, Game 6 back in Portland, that's when it can get to me. Depending on how the game goes, can go sideways on you.
Yeah, and this Denver-Portland series is just going so much different than I expected, even though there's only 2 games in, just because Denver was able to get the Game 1 win, which seems like it should be the case since they are the 2 seed playing at home. But that's why this is such an interesting matchup, because the West was so close this year, so the seeds are so arbitrary almost.
Yeah.
I think you have the 4 best teams in the West remaining, for sure, but Oklahoma City could have easily been in this position if they could have put it together. You know, the Spurs could have easily won that series with the Nuggets. I shouldn't say easily, but it's not out of the question by any means. And so, I don't know. I think that I think this is going to be such an interesting Game 3 because the Blazers, they made the right moves and they showed a ton of grit and toughness to win that second game, but they also had a lot of things go in their favor that was a result of good fortune.
Right.
Having Damian Lillard play like he played and still winning, credit to all the rest of those guys. Making the moves that they made to slow down Nikola Jokic and slow down the Nuggets at large, great moves by Terry Stotts. But also the Nuggets couldn't hit the broadside of a barn shooting the basketball. I just don't know if you can expect that.
Okay.
And it's this series is going to be a lot more competitive and compelling than I thought. I think our predictions coming into this thing was that Portland was going to roll, and
yeah, the 5 or 6.
The mismatch that is Jokic is so real.
Yeah,
and you're going to have to continue to mitigate it if you're the Blazers, because you did it for one game and that doesn't matter. Because I mean, the guy is going to come back out and he's so unorthodox. It just takes such a collective and focused effort to be able to stay with him because he just plays like no one else in the league.
Yeah. Talk more about the Bucks and Celtics in this last segment here. I'll take a quick break and then bid you all adieu for a little while. Hey, guess what? Canyon River, they got new carts and they are outfitted with the Shark Experience. What's the Shark Experience? Glad you asked. It allows every hole to have dynamic interaction with the player. It gives bunker distances from wherever you are. You drive up to your ball, you know exactly how far it is to bunkers, to water hazards, to the front and back of the green, to the tee. And you can even, it's a touch screen, you can even set up shots on it, move it around, know exactly how far you need to hit it to set up a second shot on a layup, something like that. Has also, this is great, live scores. So if games are going on while you're out there, you're going to know what's going on. It's got satellite radio. It's got Bluetooth. And my favorite feature of all of it, surround sound. It's a Dagnab party at Canyon River Golf Course. Not to mention, it is one of, not the most spectacular setting in western Montana for a golf course out there at the base of the mountains along the Clark Fork River. Beautifully manicured course. It's coming along now. We got some warm weather. Going to be looking very, very nice. Go online. CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. You can do online tee times, find out about a bunch of specials that they got going on, reduced rates, and a very, very affordable and an outstanding, spectacular golf experience. If you're in the area, if you're in a golfer, Canyon River is where you want to go. The Canyon River Golf Club, and online at the CanyonRiverGolfClub.com.
This Mother's Day, treat the Montana mom in your life to the Montana Club's famous Mother's Day buffet. She'll be dazzled as she savors everything from slow-roasted prime rib and glazed ham to fresh berry crepes and lemon bars. If mom wants to sleep in, bring her in later for our artfully crafted Mother's Day dinner specials like brandy peppercorn filet and steak and Maine lobster tail. Mother's Day buffet 8 to 2, followed by Mother's Day dinner specials 3 to close. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey folks, the best season of the year is upon us. That's right, it's tax return season, and there's one place to have the most fun and make that refund check stretch further than anywhere else, Selway Armory. Selway Armory has the largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories of anywhere around, and they have the expertise to go with it. It's not everywhere that you can shop local and save money, but Selway Armory will meet or beat any box store price, and your money stays in Montana. It's tax return time, so get more bang for your buck at Selway Armory. Visit online at selwayarmory.com. Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Tootell, Nuanez 1029 ESPN Missoula, here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Colter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Hey folks, Ryan Tootell, and I'm here with Josh of The Advocates. Josh, do most injury accidents end up in court?
Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court through a fair negotiation with an insurance company. However, sometimes it is necessary. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair settlement. Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court with a fair negotiation with the insurance company. However, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get the right settlement for you.
It's Josh at The Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Tootell and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
They always say congratulations. Work so hard, forgot how to vacation. They ain't never had the dedication.
Tootell and Nuanez. All guests join the show on the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studio on ESPN Radio in western Montana and across the state on SWX television. Here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
I'm surrounded 20 babies, but they didn't know me last year.
For my last segment for vacation, I'm just going to stand. Got a lot of sitting out there in front of me. Hold the microphone here. Stand up. Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Seals. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for hanging out. I'm going to miss you. I really am going to miss you. I like doing this. I like being with you each day, and I will look forward to returning. I will tell you this, though. I probably won't think much about it while I'm sitting on the beach.
You're not going to live stream Tootell Nuanez from the Philippines?
You know what, dude?
What time is it there right now?
Right now in the Philippines, let's see, it's just about 6 o'clock here, so it is 8 a.m., 7:50
Oh, so it would be possible. You might be up. Maybe have your morning Joe. Listen to Nuanez and friends.
I'm going to be waking up earlier, ironically, in the Philippines than I do in the United States because two reasons. It's hotter. The kids are back in there. They're up. I'm up. Thing. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll get a little live stream going. I don't know what my internet situation is going to be. One thing while I'm gone, though, want to let you know, this is very, very cool. But Adventure Missoula is hooking it up, and we are going to, well, you are, Colter.
Yep.
You, Colter, and friends are going to be giving away a whitewater rafting trip for two down the Alberton River Gorge. It's a half-day raft trip down the Clark Fork and then through the gorge. And so Colter's got that going on for you. So tune in next week, the week after, and it's springtime. The waters are coming, and you can use this thing anytime you want all summer long for a couple of winters. So got a cool giveaway. That'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get on the river. Love getting on the rivers.
Got all sorts of stuff for you guys next week. Got a couple more Taglieri gift cards as part of our Big Sky Conference Outdoor Track and Field Championships. The ESPN Roundtable next week will feature Carly Smedala, Morgan Solser, Erica McLeod, and Hannah Fowler from the University of Montana women's track team. So that'll be fun.
Awesome.
4 of the great Montana natives that are running in the University of Montana. That's pretty cool. You know, they all get a. I guess Smedala still has one outdoor season left, but the rest of those young ladies will be running in their final Big Sky meets, so that'll be neat. That'll be fun. Got the raft giveaway. Riley Corcoran's going to come in and join me on Tuesday, so Voice of the Grizz be in studio, so that'll be a fun one. Sean Rainey is going to come in and co-host for a couple days, and we got a couple other guys that are in the mix as well. Brooks Nuanez will probably be towing the rope a little bit,
let's
too.
go, Brooks.
Yeah, I hope he's listening because I just volunteered him, didn't even ask him. And I got a whole bunch of other interviews that I want to do without Ryan interrupting me, so it'll be great. It'll be my dream come true.
Yeah, lots of numbers coming at
this is okay, so I got to tell you this.
Yes.
When people go on vacation and they go to these tropical or extravagant or unique or cool or high traffic places, I almost always get really jealous. I got big time fear of missing out. And this is not to put a damper on your trip whatsoever, but I am not jealous of you at all. Only because we've talked so extensively about what the environment, the weather is like in the Philippines. And you, my friend, are taking a backpack and a couple pairs of shorts, couple shirts, couple pairs of chones. I'd have to check a bag just to take my socks and underwear. I would die. I would perish. I do not think that I could live. If I had to be in 95% humidity and 95 degrees for 2 full weeks, I really think that it would be a health issue for me.
I'm legit worried for myself because you know me. I don't know if I'm as hot-blooded as you, but I run warm.
You do run warm.
Give me 20 below, I'm good with that. So it's going to be an adjustment. To be sure, I have been in some tropical locales in my history. Usually, the redeeming value is if it's real tropical, usually abundance of water. And so, there's a lot of laying in the sea, maybe on the river, whatever it might be.
Isn't the water like hot enough to take a bath in?
Well, yeah, but it's not 90.
True.
It feels cool. I would imagine if the water doesn't feel cool to the touch at the time that I get it in the ocean, it could go poorly. It could go very poorly for me. So I'll report back. I'll let you know.
You're not reporting back, dude. You're buying a fish farm and you're out.
I don't believe that this will be my last ever Tootell Nuanez.
Oh, no. You're going to have to come back and get all your stuff. And then I'm going to make you do the show for a week in exchange for me helping you pack. No, but then you'll be gone.
This is my home. This is where I want to be. But I'm happy to go check it out at least for a little while. They had a pig on the rotisserie today, which is just a stick over open coals up in the village. And I was, as much as I'm mad that I'm missing out on your birthday, I'm also mad that I'm not there now checking out the festival. They got a whole the village fiesta going on for the next couple of days. I'm missing that. So I got to plan this better next time.
So your lovely wife cooks Filipino food from time to time.
Yeah.
But is there any local fare that you can't wait to get the authentic Philippines version of it?
I mean,
chicken adobo is the thing you guys always talk about, right?
That's a lot of adobo. I don't know how much of that they'll make. There's going to be plenty of good seafood. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh yeah,
actual fish, prawns, that kind of thing.
You just made the first comment that'll make me jealous.
Yeah,
that'll make the fresh, straight out the sea seafood.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be my fish pond by the end of it. Maybe I'll be eating as much as I want. Proud new owner of 40 acres of ground eating animals. What do they call ground eating? What are they floor eating? Floor whatever.
Do you think the people that live in the village that you're going to know what ESPN is?
I think they do now because Tina went down there. I don't know that.
So when this giant man, because
this is going to be the best part.
As I've heard at least, men that are 6 feet 210 pounds are twice the size of everyone on the islands, right?
That might be the thing I look forward to the most is what would it be like to be Joel Embiid? Well, I'm about to find out. Boys and girls, have a wonderful weekend. Coulter, happy birthday, brother.
Thanks.
Have a excellent weekend. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Hold it tight till I get back.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever just in time for summer. There's our exclusive open range AT that we believe is our quietest, smoothest, and best all-season traction tire ever. Or the Reputation, our exclusive high-mileage premium passenger tire. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 open range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
It's a crisp fall morning. Time for your daily pumpkin soy latte. As you wait for your coffee, you get a buzz. No, it's not your boss wanting extra whipped cream, but your ADT video doorbell. It's a package. Your new latte machine. No more $5 PSLs. Barista service. Brought to you by ADT. Designing and installing a smart home just for you. Backed by best-in-class 24/7 protection. Learn more at ADT.com. ADT. Real protection. License information available at ADT.com.
It happens. You're positive you put your bank card back in your wallet, but the next time you need it, it's missing. Avoid the panic and take control with the MyCard app and debit card from Farmer State Bank. Our app lets you control your debit card and securely turn it off right from your phone. Safe, secure, instant. MyCard is available only at Farmer State Bank. Ask about it at any of our 9 locations or learn more at farmersebank.com. Farmer State Bank, member FDIC.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula.